I would like to introduce Kristine Schellhaas to you. She will be speaking this morning. Kristine founded and launched USMC Life in 2009 as a way to connect and educate military families during the daunting task of moving duty stations. Haven't we all been there? She is a co-founder of #KeepYourPromise Alliance to advocate for military families on the Hill. She has dedicated thousands of volunteer hours helping military families aboard military installations, as well as developing an online tool that provides its users with access to pertinent information for the entire family. With that, Kristine.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. If there's a mass exodus, that's okay. I get not everybody wants to write a book. Now, just in case you forgot, books. It's an individual, it's like screens with words on it. You know, you can make one, you can buy one, they're amazing. So, why do you want to consider writing a book? I know you've got a book inside you. It's something that you should definitely consider, and you think about what are the questions that you get asked the most from your audience. That is a great starting point for figuring out if you want to actually publish a book. It is a tool to reach new users, it's a tool to re-engage old users, and it's a tool to make a little bit of extra money. And in the end, you have to decide what you want your audience to walk away with. These are some tips and tricks. These are maybe a new platform that you're developing, or maybe it's something that you want to write with other people and you can bounce off each other's platforms. But in the end, you really want to think about how this is going to bring you additional income. This is going to be a new stream of revenue. This is going to be something that you can put in your pocket. It may not be a lot of money, but it's certainly a good place to start. But in the end, you basically need to write your story. You need to get things down. You need to sit down and just start jotting down some ideas, whether it's bullet points or paragraphs. Now, this is going to be a very intensive PowerPoint presentation today because I have paid a lot of money to hire experts and to figure out all of these tips and tricks. Please feel free to take pictures of the slides. You may not want to actually write down all this information. Like I said, there's just a lot of bullet points on here. So you think about, you know, I'm already awesome and I'm really too busy and I just don't have time to write a book. But really, anybody can do one. So you think about what is the fastest way that you can write a book? There are options. Pick a partner. So you pick someone and you decide to split your book into chapters. So you figure out, maybe Jen Pilcher and I want to write a book together, and we say, let's talk about how the Keep Your Promise Foundation started. How did we get to start that? How do we connect nonprofits and other organizations together to change congressional action? And then you say, okay, well, here's what we want to talk about. You're going to split it into chapters. You're going to write your questions, and you're going to say, what would I want to ask her? And what would she want to ask me? So you're going to write those questions, and you're going to have a conversation with each other. Then you're going to record it. You can send that recording to a transcriptionist. You get a really big, fat draft back. You take a look, and then you say, you know what? There's some really good information here. Maybe I should add a little more information here. Maybe I need to delete this. Maybe I forgot we should have added this information. So basically, that's your opportunity to review, and then you send it to an editor. This is probably the fastest way to write a book, and anybody can find and carve out a couple of hours to do this. And then you also have the advantage of publishing with someone else other than you. So you can not only tap into your channels, you're also tapping into your partner's channels. Maybe you're thinking, I want to go to a publisher. You know, I don't want to do it myself. I think it's more, brings a lot more authenticity if it's coming from a big publishing company. But the downside is that usually you have to find an agent to pick up your work. This is not the easiest process. But there are some tips. A publisher usually provides a team of support, including editors and marketers. So you have those advantages, but your book takes substantially longer to publish. And as I was speaking with one of our fellow attendees here, she has been talking to a publisher for months. I just sold my book last October to a publisher. My book came out a year and a half ago, and my book is just now coming out next week. So even though my book was 100% done, they have to get it in their sales channels. It has to go through all of these approval processes. But in the end, you're going to see less money in royalties. So if you decide you want the easier route, well, that comes with a cost. That means you're getting less money in your pocket. And your book is only going to be a priority for 90 days, at most. They have got other projects, they've got other deadlines, and they've got more important things to do than looking at your book. However, there are deeper distribution channels, and that is going to make you eligible for wholesale orders. Maybe you want your book in the military exchanges or large stores. So there are definitely some pros and cons. I'm going to talk to you about self-publishing, also called indie publishing. It just sounds a little nicer, sounds a little more trendy to call it indie publishing. But everything falls on your shoulders. Writing, editing, formatting, printing, distribution, marketing and PR, book reviews, and book awards. So basically, you need to find the right people to hire. I ended up getting a recommendation for someone to edit my book, and it was a waste of my 60 days and a waste of my money. It did not work out, and they did not provide the service that I requested. So in the end, get recommendations and referrals, and later on, I'll give you some of my recommendations and referrals for things that I have found. But in the end, you also get the final say in telling your story. You don't have to worry about sending your manuscript to a publisher and having them chop out parts that you don't like or reword things in your mouth that you didn't actually say. So there's definitely some benefits in telling your story. You decide your price point, and you get all of the money. And that's in the end what we're looking for, right? We want to fulfill our pockets and get some additional revenue streams. So in the end, you have to decide, how much work are you willing to do? Do you have the time to do this? Do you want to get your book out there as soon as possible? And are you willing to give up royalties for the easier route? So you have to say, I am willing to take less money, I have more time, and I'm willing to hand this project over because I don't want to deal with it. And that's fine too. There's certainly a lot of options out there. But in the end, you may or may not be rolling in the money. A lot of people think that book publishing is a really get-rich scheme. In the end, it is not. Unless you're Stephen King or you're selling all these books and you have a lot of advance pay, you're just going to be having another revenue stream that's possibly leading to speaking gigs, will possibly lead to selling other items. So here in the end is why I chose to self-publish. Our story was deeply personal to me. My book, 15 Years of War, discusses what I did before I got married and what my husband did while training and at combat and at war. So basically, it has emails between us. It has interviews that took place where I didn't want a publisher to change the words that he was using and make it more bravado. And he already has a hard time with some of the things that I've written. And that was already a conversation where he's like, I would never have said that. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, then you need to fix it. But I did not want to hand that over to a publishing company for them to go ahead and just change things. The second thing was I wanted to choose the book cover. You give your book to a publishing company, and they're going to pick the book cover for you. I am female. I happen to think that a lot of females read my book, but there are a greater number of males who read my book. And sometimes publishing companies don't want to consider that that may not be the market. They may be thinking, your target market is this, and that's what we're going to go for. But that would have meant that I would have had a feminine book cover, and I did not want that. I knew that I was connected. I work with the Military Times, the Marine Corps Times. I work with military bloggers. I knew that I had connections that I wanted to exhaust and utilize and then pass my project over. In the end, it all boiled down to control. I wanted to control my project. I knew my messaging, I knew my audience, and I knew that I was connected, so I knew that there were opportunities to go ahead and utilize this. This is a cover of my book on the left. This is the original. And you can see that the publisher has done a very few tweaks of some of the awards that the book has written. They made my name bigger. It's very similar. So it was, again, part of that control issue. So self-publishing, you need to write your story. So basically, you need to write when you can. Now, for me, I was already running, I sold the website, USMC Life. I sold that back in 2015 after amassing 2.5 million followers a month on social media and website traffic. So I already had an audience built in, and when I sold the site, I kept rights to my Facebook page and to post opportunities on the site. So I knew that I could reach my channels. But that means that I was managing the site, because when I sold the site, I stayed on as the editor, so I was already working, and I was having kids, and I was managing the house. So that means that I had to limit TV and write when I could. Now, think about getting a laptop, and if someone in your family is, wanting to watch Netflix or something, pop your laptop in front of you. Start jotting some notes down. You really don't need to pay that much attention. That's where the editing comes in place, where you have to have more focus. And the second thing is you need to set deadlines for yourself. You need to decide, when do I want my book to come out? What are some of these milestones that you need to hit? Your book needs to stay under 120,000 words. Now, because I was using emails between my husband and I when he was in Iraq and Afghanistan, I had 400,000 words of emails. Not everybody wants an in-depth look at my life, and I don't know that I want everybody to have such an in-depth look at my life. So it was a lot of slashing, and it was a lot of asking people, what are you looking for? What resonates with you? The next thing you need to do is hire amazing editors. And this is where you really get into the developmental editing and refining. I will tell you, I am not the best writer. I'm a good writer, but you can be a great writer with a book if you hire the right developmental editors. This is my personal recommendation. She is a veteran. She is a military spouse. And she is just a great writer, and she's easy to work with. Her name is Veronica Jordan, first page, last page. Now, I went through a couple rounds with Veronica. I also used another editor. He cost me a lot more money and time. He was great too, but it's not someone I would recommend to you because it will cost your wallet some money. In the end, my recommendation for technical writing, which means you need to make sure your book is formatted the right way, that is going to be Terry Barnes. She had a column with Spouse Call. She's got a book, and she's just a fantastic writer. You could also use her for developmental writing, but I like to hire different people because once you've seen the work and you've started doing the project, you start glassing over phrases. You start glassing over, you could see the word the, and maybe you won't pick it up. Just, it's amazing what you learn to skim it past because you think that you've already looked at it. So basically with books, you have insides and outside assets. You have to set up a publishing company to look legit, in my personal opinion. You can just upload your works and you could send it through one of the online companies, but it'll have their digital stamp on it. And anyone who has traditionally published or self-published usually knows that. So if you already have a company, which most of us do, you can just set up a DBA under your current business name for about $100, and then you can make your own indie publishing company. My publishing company was called Life Publishing. So anyone who picked up my book would think that the publishing company, Life Publishing, published my book. So no one would have any idea that I indie published. You buy your own ISBNs at Boker.com. So if you guys are thinking about writing a book, they always have a Black Friday sale. And you can get your ISBNs for about half off. And they never usually go on sale. So I recommend getting added to their list if that's something that you want to do. And you can usually buy 5 ISBNs or less, or just one. But I think it's not much extra for 5. So if you think that maybe you've got another book in you, buy the 5. Then you need to get a Library of Congress pre-assigned control number. And you don't want to do this until your book is just about done. But what happens is this protects your work when you're at the end of it, so that nobody can take your book, scan it, and say, I wrote this book, and they get the library control number, and then all of a sudden, you're fighting in court for copyright. You need to hire a book cover designer. I can't give you my recommendation because that was a hookup with a friend, but there are a lot of other people in the community that you can give you some good advice. You need to complete your bio and a book description. Now, I have always hired this out because I have a hard time writing about myself. I could write about anybody else or tell anybody else how awesome I think they are, but when it comes to writing down who I am, I have a lot more difficult time with that. And finally, you need to get some professional headshots taken. And I would get a lot of portrait, I would get a lot of landscape, because you never know when you're speaking if they say, okay, I need a landscape of this, I need a portrait of this. You just don't know. So get a lot of different varieties. When designing your own book, you need to figure out your book size. So they're going to say, well, what size of a book do you want? And you're like, oh, I don't know. Most common is 6 by 9. You need to hire an interior book designer. Now, you don't have to do this, but I recommend that you do it. So I highly recommend that your designer uses the program called InDesign. Because if you do sell to a publisher, or if you want to make changes, then you can go in and do it yourself. They've already done all the heavy lifting for you. You can make an update. Maybe you forgot to mention someone that was really instrumental in your life. You have the file, and then if you sell to a publisher like I did, you send the file over. It's no big deal. You get the file upon completion, and my personal recommendation is Christopher Bell at Athos Arts. He does really beautiful work, and he is affordable. Now, you can probably figure out how to use InDesign yourself if that's something that you just don't want to spend the money on, but I believe it's an important step. The next thing you need to do is hire an ebook designer because you have books like Kindle, Nook, and ebooks, and they're all different. You cannot make one ebook that's going to fit all of those platforms. My personal recommendation is Kella Campbell at ebooksdoneright.com. She is fantastic, and again, she's affordable. Now, here is an example of a bad design of a book. And you'll be thinking, oh, well, you know, it doesn't really look that bad. But people who know books will look at this and say, oh, that's a terrible font to use. They say bad use of space, there's bad structure, sloppy hyphenation, poor font choices. It's just, you know, it's not something we really think about or maybe could pick out ourselves. But people who know books, like your librarians who are going to be reviewing your books, maybe you're going to submit to book awards, and they look at it and they're going to be like, next. Your book will not even make the final cut if you don't have a good book format design. So my book design, here's one of my chapters. And there's a lot of white here because this was what I submitted to the printer. So not all of this white space is going to be here. They will cut it off. But you can see there's a beautiful font. The designer really put a nice chapter heading on there. And you can see that some things are just italicized to show a different thought. So it's really something that I think a lot of people should do it. So when you think about printing, you need to make your book consistent. So you're going to use probably 2 different platforms that I'm going to recommend to you. You can't sell on Amazon. I mean, you can sell on Amazon. You can sell at Barnes & Noble and a lot of different publishers. But I'm going to give you 2 recommendations of channels to use. So again, the most common size is 6x9. They're going to ask you, what color of paper do you want? So they say use cream paper. White paper is typically used for your college textbooks, educational programs. Cream is used more for novels, fictions, and memoirs and things like that. Your costs for printing black and white are substantially cheaper than printing in color. If color is really important to you and you have a really beautiful book design, definitely consider it, but know that black and white is your most affordable way to go and have a bigger markup of money in your pocket. And in the end, you're going to have to figure out your price point and how much money you're going to want to make. So there's a few ways you can do this. 90% of books, maybe even 95%, are sold on Amazon. So I don't feel like you really need a publisher these days unless you want to tap into some markets that maybe you don't already know. So you can print on demand, which is how physical copies of your books get to your readers. So the 2 programs are CreateSpace for Amazon and Ingram Spark, and that's going to get you into Barnes & Noble and everywhere else. Now, you also have the opportunity to go to a smaller printer. Maybe you're a speaker at Millspouse Fest, and you know that I'm going to be speaking, and I'm going to be giving away 50 books, and I have 17 events, and you can calculate the number of books that you need to give away. Then I would recommend going to a smaller printer to get, 500 or 1,000 copies. Otherwise, those books are just going to be sitting in your garage, and maybe it gets wet one day, maybe your covers turn up, and then that's a book. No one wants a book with turned up covers or other damages to it. So in Amazon, you're going to create space for your print books, but they do not do hardcover. So if you want a hardcover book, then that's something that you need to consider. You can get that from another publisher, and I'll get to that in a minute. So these are some of my costs. You can ship copies directly from the warehouse. So that saves you shipping and time. So my costs for one book cost me $5.95. My book retails for $16.99. Shipping costs are $3.59. So my costs are $9.54 a book. However, I can buy a set of 10 books for $59.50. The shipping costs are only $8. So you can see there's a big difference between shipping, and if you keep some books on hand, that's what I do. I keep about 10 to 15 books at my house for when I need them to send them to people. So that only breaks it down to $6.75 a book when you buy in bulk. Now, if you're shipping media rate at the USPS, that's going to cost you about $3.50. So in the big scheme of things, I don't like to ship books to customers from myself because that costs me an envelope and it costs me my time to go to the USPS store. So I sell books and then I ship them directly from the warehouse. And it's something I don't have to do. I can get more money in my pocket. The warehouse takes care of the orders and I don't have to worry about anything else. So for Amazon royalty, my book retails again for $16.99, so I'm making a royalty of $4.74. My book is 384 pages. My book is quite long because I have a longer story to tell and it covers in 15 years. Now, there's 2 programs on Amazon. I recommend you taking a picture of the slide when I get done, and I'll let you have a second here with this one. This is one of the most confusing programs out there. Amazon Advantage is selling pre-printed books, where Amazon is the seller, so you get prime shipping. Most of us know all about that. And they ship and fulfill your orders in 2 days. Now, you can also be a seller on Amazon, and that's where you're selling books that have already been printed, but you are the seller. They're coming from your house, so that means you have to ship and fulfill those orders. And those fees are $1.20 a book, and then they take a 15% commission. But you have to fulfill the orders on Amazon's timeline, which means if you have a family emergency, if you're on vacation, and you don't get those books out in a certain amount of time, then Amazon will punish you and they will close your account. Go ahead and grab a picture of this if that's something that you're interested in. And like I said, I paid a lot of money and did a lot of research to figure these things out, so I'm hoping that this will make your journey a lot easier. Now, let's talk, and these are for printed books, let's talk about ebooks on Amazon. So there's several programs on Amazon that they have that will offer you opportunities. One is Amazon Kdp, which stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. So those books you have to price between $2.99 and $9.99 to get 70% royalty. If you price them over, then you only get a 35% royalty. So to give you an example of some math here, $9.99 at a 70% royalty equals $6.99 in your pocket. For a book that you price, say, at $15.99, that's $5.60 in your pocket. So you can see that it really does pay to have a lower quality, or lesser priced book. Now there's Kdp Select, which means Amazon wants you to exclusively sell books on Amazon. So they say, okay, you can have books elsewhere, but you're not going to have electronic books elsewhere. And in exchange, we're going to give you a higher royalty. And it might make sense for you because most of the books that are bought and sold in today's marketplace are sold on Amazon. That means that you get more international publishing and you get more money for books that are sold in Brazil, Japan, Mexico, and India. So if that's a market that you think you might be able to tap into, it might make more financial sense for you to do that. And they don't charge you delivery fees. So every time someone downloads your book, then they're going to give you a small fee to pay for that cost of downloading that book to the Kindle on your seller. But they also, and here's the kicker, and here's why I signed up for it, they offer perks like selling targeted ads. So whenever you finish a book, have you ever noticed it says, we recommend that you look at these books? Those are targeted ads. So it's kind of like using Facebook, but you're in Amazon's program and you're able to reach new customers for a very small fee. And you can actually do ads actually on Amazon the computer if they're desktop surfing. The recommendations pop up, those are all ads. They don't do it just because, you know, a book is popular. But there are negatives. So your book can be borrowed. There's a Kindle Unlimited and Kindle's Owner's Lending Library program. You cannot opt out of that. Once you sign up for that, it's a double-edged sword, so you have to consider. So for 2,000 pages read, I made about $7.06. So is your goal in the end to reach more people? Or is it to make more money? So for me, I was like, well, maybe they'll like the book, and then maybe someone will want to buy a print copy and give it to a friend. So in the end, I thought the risk of having my book borrowed out, or if, say, someone read my book and wanted one of their friends to borrow it, I thought that the smaller royalty was worth reaching a larger audience. And then if you have other programs that people can tap into, that's certainly something you want to investigate. But in the end, you are locked in for 90 days. So it's not something you can immediately switch out of if it's not working out for you. So look, I got the ends kind of cut off here. But basically, Kdp, your ebook is sold across other platforms, and you get a lower royalty than SDP Select. It's not much smaller. So if you choose not to do the Select, the Kindle Kdp is just as good a way to go, but you obviously don't have some of the perks of advertising. I don't know if you want to take a picture, but I'm stepping aside in case you do. Okay. So if you want to reach Barnes & Noble and you want to reach other communities, the company that you want to use is called Ingram Spark. You can ship copies directly from the warehouse, but they have a lot more fees built in. They have a book printing fee, which if you want just regular printing, which is $5.80, to rush is $7.63. They also do non-trackable shipping. Wah, wah. Like, you want to know where your stuff is. So that's basically a way for them to make more money, is just saying, well, sorry, you have to roll your dice and decide if you want to track your book or not. Then they charge you a handling fee. So the total to buy one book of mine is $12.27, versus on Amazon CreateSpace, $9.54. Now, that is something that I chose to do. When I sell my own books, I do not buy them from Ingram Spark for obvious reasons. However, I do want my book to be available through Barnes & Noble, through other channels, and I'll show you some of the channels that they reach later. So it's definitely worth having both programs, but do not buy your books unless you need a hardcover. They do hardcover shipping or printing. So the total to buy 10 books, you can see, is $74, and versus Amazon CreateSpace, $67. So that's a big difference. Ingram Spark's royalty is also less, so my book is $16.99, and I get a royalty of $4.32 a book, versus Amazon at $4.74 a book. So nothing about Ingram Spark, and go ahead and take a picture if you want of this, nothing about Ingram Spark is worth it other than distribution channels to Barnes & Noble and some of the other opportunities that they have. So these are some of the channels that they offer you to get into. You can see Apple's on the list. And now they can also reach Amazon for you, but don't do it because you can make more money doing Apple yourself. So just take care of Apple and then uncheck. You can check in check boxes like, I want it to go here, but not here. So don't choose Amazon when you upload with them. But you can see they go to a lot of other companies, and maybe some of these people who are reading your book have programs through some of these other distribution channels that they want to do. So maybe you're sitting here thinking, like I gave you a lot of information and you're thinking, is this really something I want to do? This is very confusing and I just don't know. Well, let's talk more about traditional publishing. So if you want to find an agent or a publisher, you need to figure out your genre. If you're doing a military book, I would highly recommend that you consider Savas Beatty or Alvareza. They're both great military publishers and they're easy to work with. If you're doing a non-military book, then start asking for recommendations from friends or people even in this room or in the next room. There's a lot of people who may have already a book out there or some networks that you could tap into. Publishers Weekly is going to be your best friend. They're a great website, and you can find agents there. You can find examples of query letters, because you do have to build a powerful query letter to get your foot in the door. And they also offer contacts of lists of agents in your niche. So you say, well, this is a children's book I want to write. Here's a list of people who are looking for children's authors. Then they also list of publishers in your niche, and these are publishers, and maybe you don't have to have an agent. You can do more research on that. But if you're planning on writing a novel or a memoir, your book needs to be done. You cannot do a proof of concept with those kind of books. But if you're writing fiction and you have a series, they always love books of 3 or more. Trilogies are very powerful because they know that if they read the first book, your audience is more likely to buy the second or the third. Then you just need to complete a book proposal. So, marketing. Did anybody want to take a picture? Did I go too fast? Okay. So marketing before the launch. Amazon. These are all the things that you will have to do even if you have a publisher. You will need to set up an Amazon author account. And if you are self-publishing, then you need to set up Amazon Advantage to do pre-sales. So you are going to have to print a certain amount of books for Amazon to host so that you can do pre-sales. Unfortunately, CreateSpace doesn't work with Amazon to do pre-sales for authors. I don't know why. So just plan on going to CreateSpace and having them talk to them about printing a number of books. But you can go ahead and get that started so that you're not losing out on those sales if you have anybody review your books for you. You need to build or update your website. So you can sell unsigned copies for less than on Amazon, which makes you more money. So for example, I charge on my website $1 less, but I get substantially more revenue of $6.45 in my pocket. And on Amazon, if they sell the book, it's only $4.75 or $4.74 in my pocket. Now, I just signed copies on my website for the same price as what they do on Amazon. So people who are maybe your followers or think that this is a book that they resonated with and they want to send to their family or friends, maybe they want to buy a signed copy. So they know that they can go on your website and buy a book, same price as Amazon, but that it's going to be signed. So for that, I sell for the same price, and then I have shipping, so that's $6.74 in my pocket, where Amazon, still I'm only getting $4.74 if Amazon were to sell it. So there are some perks for selling your own work. Also, you can offer bulk pricing at various levels. So maybe someone resonated with your work and they want to give it to some other people. So if you buy books of set of 5, a set of 10, a set of 20. So maybe they're holding a conference and they're not booking you as a speaker, but they want to give your book out as a resource. You've just given them a huge discount for buying a multiple number of books, and all you have to do is log into your warehouse and ship it directly to them. It's a really great way to make extra money in your pocket. Then you need to decide, do I want to offer speaking services? Is this something I want to offer a bundled package on? I could do a program, and I could do a book. And then some people, if they stumble across your website or maybe had a recommendation, they didn't realize you were a speaker, then you can have a bundle package, and they can say, oh, yes, you're exactly what we were looking for. We need to do a community event. Please come. You can also link to things that you sell if they're on your website. So maybe you are referring to several products of things that work for you. You can go ahead and have some of those links, so it ends up building more revenue, money in your pocket. You have to set up a Goodreads author account. Now, if you're just having an ebook of some referrals and recommendations, maybe some links, you don't have to do this, but I still recommend doing it because if someone's searching on the Goodreads author account, if they search the right terms, then your name's gonna pop up. And this offers people an opportunity to rate and review your work. Highly recommend updating your LinkedIn, creating a sell sheet, which is basically a sell sheet for librarians, people in the marketing community. All it has is your ISBN and an example of what your book and what people have said. You can make postcards super cheap for marketing efforts. If I sell a book, I always include a postcard, because if they like the book, they can hand the postcard out to somebody else. It's an easy referral. And then consider getting Google Voice. Go ahead and take a picture of this slide if you want, and here's why I believe in Google Voice. You don't want to change your phone number all the time, and you never know that if your number is listed on marketing, especially if you're self-publishing, who's going to get your number. And if you have to change your real phone number, that's a real pain. But if you get Google Voice, you can change that number at any point in time, and it's no big deal. And it doesn't cost you any money. What's that? Google Voice. Google Voice. If you have a Gmail account, you just click onto the waffle, and then you can click on Google Voice, and they basically set you up, and you can have voicemails to text, and it's just a free program. It's pretty cool. So marketing, you're going to have to market your own book, and if you sell to a publisher, you're going to have to market your book. They're not going to do everything for you, and you don't want them to. So this is something that you're going to have to do. Now, fundraising site, this is something if you want to consider, and I did this on Kickstarter. Now you think, why? Why would you want to put your book on Kickstarter? Does that make you look like you're trying too hard? No, I got $5,000 in my pocket for selling on my book on Kickstarter. I knew that family and friends were going to buy the book, and I thought, well, I'm just going to tap into that and take pre-sales. So I used that as a pre-sales channel, and it offered a powerful link to my website. So anybody who's looking for successful books on Kickstarter now will find my book as being a successful campaign for being highly funded. And if they're Googling my name, then they're going to have a link automatically to my book. And it's just a powerful, they've got a lot of Google juice. So if you've never heard of the word Google juice, websites that have a lot of visitors, have a lot of hits, and have a lot of links, Google knows that if this is linking to somebody, then they're more relevant. So it's going to be higher in the search, and it will just give your book more relevancy when someone's looking for something. So if you're a competitor and they didn't do the fundraising, and they're searching for a military family book, and you use those terms, then your book will come up on the fundraising site, and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Well, I'm going to check it out. So it's a powerful, easy way to do that. And you don't have to send $5,000 like I did, but that was just something I knew that I could do because I was connected to a lot of people. You're going to have to create a list of newspapers, magazines, online publications, and media for people that you hope to reach. And I would say ask friends for introductions or referrals. The media companies today do not like to do book reviews. They just don't. So tap into the Military Blogger Network, where they can get some revenue by recommending your book. So anytime a book sells on Amazon, they get some change in their pocket. I offered a fee for anybody reviewing my book. I think I paid $20 or $25. And I said, okay, I know that it's worth your time. I'm sending you a free book. Here's $20. Check it out. And then those are all incoming links to your work. And a lot of my book sales and recommendations have come from military bloggers. So definitely tap into that. You can do a book trailer. Now, you need to decide if you want one, but know that social media loves video right now. I decided to do a book trailer. I produced mine for a very nominal fee, and you're going to get a snap peek at it.
They volunteered to serve, to protect our nation. No one would have ever expected the war to last this long. No one knew how 15 years of war would affect the 1% of our nation serving, leaving the rest of America to wonder what it's really like. Creating a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a life together, a family. Braving the darkest moments, and fighting to return home once again. Honoring the fallen, grieving and remembering their names, celebrating the bonds of a family whose children will say goodbye to their hero once again. He answers the call of duty in Afghanistan, Iraq, and the Pacific. She keeps the home fires burning. Worlds apart and in the face of indescribable grief, the relationship is pushed to the limits. This groundbreaking new memoir sheds light on coping with war in modern-day America through the military spouse and service member perspective. This story of faith, love, and resilience offers insight into how a decade and a half of war has redefined what it means to be a military family.
Do you want to buy the book yet? So for the amount of money that I spent on this video, you can go on to dvids.com, you can go to marines.mil, or whatever service you are associated with, and you can download their video and use because it is not copyrighted. So I downloaded a lot of that video. A lot of the combat video is from my husband's actual deployments at war, and I did a lot of iPhone video myself, the black and white, and I just hired a military family that I was close to, and I said, okay, can I videotape you guys in different scenes? And it took a day of my time. I paid $500 for that video, and whatever it cost me for, it may even cost me $250, honestly. I don't remember what I paid the guy. The guy who did the sound over was amazing. He normally does the Quaker Oats commercial and all the Disney trailers. I did not know it at the time. I went to Filmora. I used Filmora. That's a program that you can use to create videos. It's awesome. There's lots of filters. It's super easy to use, and I highly recommend doing it. But I went to VoiceOver, where Voice 123, to find, and you can listen to people's voices, and like, I really liked this guy's voice. So I reached out and I said, hey, here's my book, here's my project. And he's like, I like you, you're a military spouse. And I can't remember if I paid him $250 or $500. But basically, this guy charges tens of thousands of dollars to do voiceovers. And he was like, I want to support your project, so it cost me almost nothing. And I just took some video that I downloaded from Divas, I chopped it, I added some filters, I added things of my own. And I tell you what, this video has had awesome engagement. Now, this is just from my 15 Years of War page. I've had 48 comments on the video, 756 reactions, but 52,000 views. Now, that's not from me uploading the book to my website that I sold, USMC Life. That's just my 15 Years of War page. So I would highly recommend, if you are doing something, it doesn't have to be that long. It could be a short clip, but Facebook is pushing video, as we all know. And so it's a really great way to get free organic views by paying for marketing, because your marketing is going to be, say, sponsored, where people find a book that it resonates with them, and they're like, oh, let's check into this. Maybe we should look into this website. Maybe we should hire this person. So I think for the bang for the buck, you should consider a book trailer, if that's will fit into your work. So let's talk about book reviews. Again, big media wants almost nothing to do with indie books, first of all, and they hardly will consider doing a big book unless you have a lot of authority behind your name. So consider writing or a completed one or an exclusive article that someone maybe has already written about your book and say, this is an exclusive article for your site. You can copy and paste and upload it. It costs you no time. And they might be looking for filler marketing on the weekends anyways, or on days where it's slow, and they'd be happy to push it out for you, and it requires no work and no cost for them. Again, find your bloggers, offer a fee if possible. Now, if you want to get into some more powerful reviews, forward reviews, they will do it for free, which is a really great program, but you have to submit it 4 months prior to your publishing. So I didn't do that because I got sucked in the Department of Defense delay. Because my book was based on interviews with my service member, I had to get the DoD's approval. That took 6 months, and they changed nothing. So it was basically me contacting them saying, where are we? But it pushed my timeline out, and so I lost out. So consider if you actually have active duty or veteran service voices, that is something that you will need to consider. But what you can do is submit it to Floored Clarion Review. So you're basically paying $4.99, and that goes to librarians, indie bookstores. It's a marketing material, but not every book is going to make the cut. If you purchase a Clarion Review, you are guaranteed a review. So you can do indie readers for $2.25. Kirkus reviews have mixed reviews. They're like $4.25 to $5.75. But everyone knows that Kirkus reviews are paid for, and they're kind of take every review with a grain of salt. The Military Writers Society of America is a really cheap way to get your book reviewed. They're member-driven, which means you have to buy a membership onto the site in order to get your book reviewed. It's a nominal fee, but they are very slow. But when it comes out, it's nice. And then they'll automatically put your book in for an award. So I got a silver award based on the book. And this is going to sound kind of bad, but I hear veterans do better always than military spouses. And because it's a kind of an old school community, take it with a grain of salt. That's just some skinny. You can also go Publishers Weekly Book Life, and that is free. Again, your book name may not make the cut. I ended up winning $1,000 and Best Nonfiction Award from them. It carries a lot of weight. I got a lot of free marketing out of it, and it costs me nothing. And again, find individual readers. You're gonna have to beg your readers to give you, I'll back away so you can get a picture of that if you want. But no one really likes reviewing books. Even if you can find someone who's read your book and say, please leave me a review. Reviews are super hard to get. And when I have 27 reviews on my book, and it's been sold to thousands. So you just have to ask people, please leave me a review. If they contact you and they say, oh, I love your book. Thank you so much. It really resonated with me. First thing you say is, thank you so much, and please leave me a review when you have a minute, because those reviews really do make a difference. Like, think about when you're buying a product on Amazon. You're going to look and see what the 1 stars are, and you're going to look and see what the 5 stars are, and you're like, can I stomach that? Is it worth my money? So here's some places that you can get recommendations for some resources. And you go ahead and take a picture of this if you want. But Writer's Win is a really great place that I did a lot of research. Jane Friedman, Publishers Weekly, again, that's where you can get query letters and agent directories. Book Baby has a lot of resources. They also offer publishing. I chose not to go through them. And Joel Friedlander. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to some questions, and hopefully this won't be too awkward with I'm just standing here. And yes, go ahead.
So what were the criteria for the DOB screening? I mean, other than obviously we were talking about Afghanistan, so it took longer because
Yes, they had to basically read through every line and make sure there was no secret squirrel stuff being released, and that tactics of war were not available to any of our enemies. So, yes?
What's the website you use to get the footage?
DVIDS.com, or you can go to marines.mil, you can go to YouTube. Anything that the Marine Corps has produced, Army, Navy, whatever, you can utilize. Was there a question over here? Okay. Oh, is it chopped off? Bummer, sorry guys. Well, hopefully that'll get you further enough. Go ahead.
So you pointed out the difference in the cover from working with the publisher. What about the inside of the book? How much change there?
No change at all. I asked them to re-edit it because you never know, like another set of eyes is always a good idea, and they made very few changes, so it'll look almost the same. Yes? Kayla?
If you include case studies and really stories of other people, is that a simple media release, or is that more of like contracts that you have to be drawn up if you're going to include stories of other people?
I would definitely get a release. I hired an attorney because I was talking about a lot of service members my husband worked with. Some of the guys had massive injuries. They went through 40 surgeries. Like, maybe they don't want their name out there. So I gave them the option of being anonymous, not being talked about at all, or I made a composite character. But I made everybody sign a release or give me verbal consent to move forward. Getting people to actually sign the release is really a pain, especially when you have a book this long and there's this many people that are being talked about. But I paid a nominal fee for an attorney to draft something up, and I have those all in record. Yes?
You had such a unique way of writing a book, and I don't know if you explained that to everybody, that it was his and her crew. And so have you seen, you do so much research, having a unique perspective of the way you wrote the book, his chapter, your chapter, or are you seeing other digital trends like how-tos, and we talked a lot about that at this conference. Like, I know you have to this
I hadn't seen a lot of he said, she said books. And so what Jen knows, and if you've read my book, you'll see it in the very last, it looks like my husband has written this book with me. But what I did was I trapped him in the car during a PCS, and I sat and I made like a million questions of, so when you first were training, what were you doing? Why would you do this? I don't understand. What is this for? And I took dictation of what he said, and he got really mad at me because he was like, look, I don't want to sit here and talk about it. I was like, babe, we got nowhere else to be. Like, when else are we going to do this? So like I said, I trapped him in the car, and I couldn't finish his content until I came back from Virginia all the way back to California once again to get all of his sections. And then I had to pare it down, and then I had to send it to an editor, and then that's when he's like, I would have never said that. So then you have to get permission, but or at least accepting of the situation. But I think it's always an interesting take. I think your audiences want to know more. Like, that was the question I always got was, what's it really like and how do you do it? And it was such a long story. Like, how do you explain what that really feels like when your service member deploys and your kid's puking on you and you have 2 weeks orders to move to a new school and you don't know anything about your new duty station? Like, there's a lot of information. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's an interesting perspective. And the other part was, researching on how-tos. There was a trend where you had the top 10 resources or the top 10 things you love about the military today, where, that was kind of a trend a couple years ago, and now we're moving away from that. I think those are always good things to say. But again, you have to go back to the questions you get asked. You know your audience, you know the questions and the information they want to know. That's what you need to be publishing. And then again, think about a resource like Jen and I have known each other for years. We both sold our companies within 2 months of each other. Our career tracks have been almost identical. And you think about, what do I wish I knew about her journey or someone else's journey? And then that's when you have the opportunity to really link together, tap into both audiences, and then you just split the profits. Yes?
So when you, obviously, like from the very beginning, 15 years ago or so, even further than 15 years, did you know this what you wanted, documented, or have to rack your brain again, backing up things, or was there a little bit of creative exaggeration?
Yeah, so I had no idea I wanted to do this project. I was fighting with my mother-in-law, and she was saying things that I was like, pretty sure that didn't happen. So I started digging through my emails, and I was like, I knew it, because I emailed my husband. I was like, I can't believe she did this to me. And so I had documentation. I basically had a journal of my life for 6 months at a time for every single deployment that he had been on. And then while I was rereading those emails, it took me on a journey, and I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. Wow, that was a really hard time when you lost 18 guys in an IED explosion. It still hits me today thinking about the people, the services and sacrifices that our military members do on a regular basis. And I think about the unsung efforts of our families who stay at home, our kids who were drafted into this lifestyle. They didn't ask for this. They just got signed up for it because mommy and daddy love each other and they're having a baby. So there's a number of ways you could do it. I went back, and that's why I had so many emails to read through. And then I think another thing I didn't touch on in my presentation was do beta readings. Things that you think are funny or are really important in your storytelling, someone else may read and be like, oh, that's really nasty. I wouldn't say that. I have had problems with my mother-in-law. We've been to therapy. I'll say that. And now I just don't talk to her very much. But, trying to describe how painful it is having that coming at you and having other people read the experiences, that we almost feel defensive, like, this really hurts, but at the same time, someone who doesn't know you and your story is like, oh, this feels kind of gross. So you have to temper that with opinions about your book and deleting some things. And it was very cathartic just to write my story and get that out there and just knowing, okay, I don't have to tell this part. Delete. And so those beta reads were very important because some of the things that I thought were important, my readers didn't feel did. Or they wanted more on this. They're like, we love this. I want more. You didn't give me enough. So you definitely tap into your readers.
So in another sense of that too, so you would say your reader is people who aren't familiar with military life, wanting to know more of the military life. So did you feel that you had to almost break down boot camp style of what, as military life we understand, but as a civilian they wouldn't?
Yeah, so that's who I thought my audience would be. I was trying to tap into the civilian community who knows nothing and wants to know more, but you know who's buying my book? Military spouses and veterans. So I found out the other day that they are handing my book out at Quantico, and I don't think the Marines are doing this, but the Marines who are going through the officer candidate program, the basic school, they're reading this book because they're like, this is what your life's going to look like. So I have a lot of active duty veterans taking a look and saying, these are some of the issues that you're going to run into in command. that some of your families are going to go through, or maybe if you get deployed, like it's just a really eye-opening experience. And if your book's not a memoir, if your book's a business book, obviously you're going to write a book for different reasons, but tap into that. Yes?
So I want to ask more about your daily life as far as when you started writing a book, right? What does it look like? You just say, it's 2 in the morning, I feel like I'm just going to write. Do you have a schedule that you put together where you say where you're inspired? Do you put an outline together where you say I'm just going to follow this outline and just kind of do it when I can? How did that look as you were writing this book?
So my book was a little different because it's a memoir, so I had my outline of my life. I knew that there were some massive milestones, and it basically centered around childbirth and deployments and PCSs. I call it the witching hour in the evenings. My kids were in bed. My husband always fell asleep on the couch as soon as he came home from work, so it was really easy for me to have kind of my time. And so during the day, I focused on work and household and children, and then the night I could just spend 2 or 3 hours, sometimes more. Sometimes I was like, I'm in a rut, I really have nothing to say right now, or I'm pissed off and I just want to watch Netflix. Or sometimes I was like, okay, well, this is a really good day, I got a lot to say about this. And then going back and editing and hearing from your beta readers, then you can go in and plus things up or delete things. And I found personally that I just work well at night. And I think there's a lot of writers in the room, for bloggers, and maybe a lot of you have the same kind of schedule. You have to get it in. If it's something that you want to do, start by interviews, or you start by just getting your story down on paper. Once you start, it could be the worst thing in the world, and you're going to end up deleting it anyways, but you just got to get writing. Yes? I felt like I already had the resources at hand. Sometimes a book launch team, they're trying to pinpoint you to their experts, and I was already connected to a large audience anyways. I felt like my Facebook video, my trailer, would have reached some of those people on Facebook that I wasn't already connected to. So I already spent money on editing and a lot of the other points. I spent a lot of money on my book. I wanted to make sure it was done right in the way I wanted to. But if you have no time, and if you're not spending enough, I hired experts to get this information. You got it for free, so you don't have to spend that money finding out some of that information. So maybe you want to hire a book launch team. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Your book is extremely personal, and you're speaking from your military experience, and I think that's what a lot of military families relate to. But you think when other military people are writing about military life, is one voice adequate of their own personal experience, or do they need to bring in the shared experience of the community? Some people do it this way. Some people have said this is hard. How do you balance?
Are you saying in one book? Okay. Well, if you're writing a book, I know you've already written a book, so you've already got a head start knowing kind of what's in the process, but I want to make sure I'm answering your question right. But I have to say there's been a lot of military books written, and we all have a different segment of how we saw life and how we interpreted it. So people who bought books may not want to buy my book, or maybe they bought my book and said, I can't resonate. So my friend Molly Gross has a comic book, a comedian, she's very funny, but not everyone's going to relate to her humor. And she did 4 years as a military spouse in the early Iraq War. Maybe they're going to want something a little different, but I think a lot of people who want to read military books will read a lot of military books. And in your book, if you want to incorporate some other experiences of other family members, I think go for it, because then it gives another example. Maybe they can't relate to you, but they might relate to one of your case studies or the examples of a friend who went through a similar problem. She was on base with you, or he lived and had this lifestyle, and it just has more depth and offers other opportunities for people to resonate with your material. So thank you all so much. This is really a fun opportunity for me. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to find me after anytime, today, tomorrow, whatever. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much, Kristine.